You've probably seen the announcements that there is a new Lord of the Rings film that is currently in the works. And I have thoughts. They're not exactly the most positive thoughts that I would love to have as far as a Lord of the Rings film goes. And the reasons why. Let's actually talk a little bit more about the books themselves and where they came from and what's been going on since the death of J.R.R. Tolkien. I regard The Lord of the Rings as the expression of a Catholic man who is wanting to use his work to show off his Catholic faith and also express the criticisms that he has about the revolutions that have been going on within the industries and bring in a mythology for Great Britain. This was a passion project of his. This was also a sequel to The Hobbit being a children's book, which today you might read it and you may think it doesn't read so much as a children's book, but it still has a certain magic to it that anybody would be able to read and enjoy with what's going on within the story. There was a reason why when the Silmarillion came out, the readers picked it up and wondered, what in God's name am I looking at? Why is this thick book reading like a history textbook? Why does it feel like I'm trying to study for something that is in my class? What is going on here? And what they didn't realize was that J.R.R. Tolkien was really trying to continue on with expanding and building this world that he had created. And when you truly look back at this world that he created, there's a certain majesty in the literature. And I don't quite think that the films actually captured that majesty. I know that I'm gushing, but I tried doing a project, and I would like to pick up the project again at some point here, where I would go through the different chapters and stories in the Silmarillion to note take and write down a cliff notes of sorts of what's going on and just be able to share it with anybody who was interested on it. Just something to give to friends that were also interested in Tolkien's work just as much as I was anyway. And it was a lot of fun, and it allowed me to have a bit of a deeper understanding with Tolkien's work. And thankfully, J.R.R. Tolkien had his son Christopher Tolkien, and what John Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, did was pass on the legacy from him to Christopher Tolkien. And thank God, Christopher Tolkien was able to take the projects as seriously as he did. So that way, since John's passing, Christopher was able to take the mantle, go through the notes and the projects that John had done, and compile things enough to be able to put them out and have them published, to the point where somewhat recently we were able to have a book come out called The Fall of Numenor. And that was also a delight for me to be able to read. I do love the other books that expand further on the stories that John Tolkien had tried writing and going through. I actually really love The Children of Húrin in particular. But there's also unfinished tales, and that is where you're able to read stories such as The Hunt for Gollum, and that is where the new film is going to be coming from. Now, we all know how the film trilogy for Lord of the Rings is such a monumental classic. I myself prefer the extended cuts of that trilogy. I yearly would do a marathon of the films, generally during November. And what I would love to do is have a get together with my buddies, and I would love to cook for my friends and make a big event out of it. If they wanted to stay for the entire thing, they were more than welcome to. If they wanted to come and stay for a little while, leave when they want to, perfectly welcome to do so. But the entire point was for me to be able to enjoy this trilogy with some buddies, share the time together. And it's just a way to be able to revisit it without overdoing it for myself. Because if I had the chance to, yeah, I would have watched it more often. However, you have to recognize that there were some, well, liberties taken when it came to the story. There were some things that were changed, and there was a lot to be left desired within the story. Bombadil was a little bit missing. We didn't hear anything about him in the films. Saruman, he died a little early. And if you read the books, you might notice there's a little bit more that he was supposed to be able to do, and he didn't quite get to do that. But either way, it does make sense for Saruman's death to have happened as it did in the film. And perhaps if they were to try to be as accurate to the books as possible, the films would have dragged on for much, much longer. So I get it. Would I have loved it to have been much more strictly close to the books? Sure. Would we have probably gotten another film out of it? Yeah, probably. A quadrilogy, sure. But still, you take what you can get out of it. This is going to happen. But then The Hobbit comes out years later. And this is something where you could have had it be maybe 2 movies. But it was dragged out into 3 films. And I was fine with this. If you haven't read The Hobbit, you can probably take the trilogy for what it is and really enjoy it, have a good time with it. But if you have read The Hobbit, you're going to start to wonder why and how all of this goes on for as long as it did. How did you get this trilogy that goes on for what feels like as long as The Lord of the Rings does? The book sure doesn't do that. And it feels a lot more quick. I mean, you even have the audio drama for The Hobbit that came out, I believe, in the 1960s, nowhere near as long as that kind of a story goes. And actually, if you get the chance to listen to the audio drama that came out in ye olden days, I believe from the BBC, check that out. It's a lot of fun to listen to.
In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit.
Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, nor yet a dry, sandy, bare hole. My hole was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort.
It had a perfectly round door painted green.
Still, though, I digress. The liberties were taken with it. A lot of things were messed with. It did make Legolas look a little bit more overpowered again, of course, but Legolas is a fan favorite. I understand that. Either way, though, the fans, well, some of them got a lot of the fan service that they probably would have wanted. It's a bit of a mess of a reception. So there's probably a reason why there wasn't really much of a reason for filmmakers to have wanted to try to adapt more of Tolkien's work after this. And you'd think that the kibosh was put on the idea, but lo and behold, later on, Amazon would purchase rights to be able to work on more when it comes to The Lord of the Rings. And I thought that we were going to get a revisioning of the Lord of the Rings trilogy books. And I thought that we were just going to get a retelling of this classic story. Instead, we were told, well, not quite. And then I found out that the Tolkien scholar was axed from the job in the production of the series that was going to come out. And that's when I knew things were going very, very downhill. That's when I immediately lost interest in what was going on. And then you start to figure out what kind of people were being involved with the project. You start to be able to see some of the issues going on behind the scenes. And you start to wonder, what exactly is the end goal here? What's going on? What really is this being based off of? And you hear rumors that it's being based off of the Silmarillion. Okay, is it actually being based off of the Silmarillion? Because there's a lot to work with when it comes to the Silmarillion. It's not. It's actually being based off of the appendages in the Lord of the Rings. That's not very good. Because now what you're getting into is a little bit of the unexplained. What that means is you're going to have to make some stuff up. What that means is you're going to have to fill in the blanks. How do you fill in so much content and make a full season for your series when the man who wrote the material and his son are no longer with us? And this is the issue that we're going to run into when it comes to the hunt for Gollum. That means the same thing is likely going to happen. I don't really know who's going to be behind this project. All I really understand is that Sir Ian McKellen is supposed to be part of the project, as he's cast as Gandalf. I, of course, always enjoyed Sir Ian McKellen as Gandalf. However, that's because I enjoyed The Lord of the Rings as the story itself from being told by Tolkien. If it was written by someone else, I don't know if I would have liked it as much, anywhere near as much. This is why I will most likely not care to see the movie. It doesn't matter to me. Back when Rings of Power came out, I wasn't interested. I already had none by the time the Tolkien scholar was booted from the project. As soon as he was being told to get the hell out, I had no incentive to keep track with what was going on. I knew the writing was on the wall and I could read it. What's the point? Why do I need to care? I could just bow out. None of it's going to matter to me. There are plenty of people that like to think that they're fans of Lord of the Rings, but probably haven't read anything. I mean, I can call them whatever names I want to. I can think of them however I want to. But the fact is, what really matters to me is what was in the writings that Tolkien created. That's it. As far as the stories go, they're done. After the death of Christopher Tolkien, unless we find more that was written by John and his son, it's done. There's no more. And anything that has come out after those two can be disregarded as fan fiction at the very best. And fan fiction to me is not canon. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care who holds the rights. It doesn't matter. This is the same way for Star Wars. George Lucas was the main brain behind it in the beginning. Great. However, even though Disney holds the rights to Star Wars and they are able to determine what is and is not canon at the moment here, and just because they were the powers that be that were able to say that the expanded universe is no longer canon, that does not mean that I have to care anymore. My interest was dropped, and anything that Disney does with Star Wars, I don't care anymore. That's done. the story's over. So, what do I do as far as the stories of Middle-earth go? I have the books. You can't take those away. I will always have those. Not going to get rid of them. And hopefully, I'll just be able to keep them for as long as I can. And, maybe my family will want to have them once I'm, taken out of this gigantic dirt ball. And hopefully my family will be able to enjoy them. That's what I care about. When I'm getting close to dying, then perhaps I'll read the books just one more time and enjoy them. I love what I've read by Tolkien, and that also includes Sir Gawain and the Green Knight as well. Even if I don't quite agree with what happened to Sir Gawain, how really he should not have needed to sacrifice himself, how what he actually did was for his own self-preservation. Really, he actually did the right thing. Self-preservation is the right thing to do. He wasn't trying to harm someone else. He just wanted to live. Who could blame him? And he didn't live at the expense of somebody else. He just lived. And he found the intuitive and sneaky way to be able to do it. Bravo, man. Bravo. You deserve your place among the Knights of the Round Table. And thankfully, Tolkien was able to beautifully write down a new translation to have it read for us. So, I genuinely appreciate Tolkien's work, and I believe it belongs in the memories of history. And so long as the works are preserved and available for us, I don't care if I have to purchase it separately and individually. I will be happy to do so if I ever need. So long as I don't have these other companies that have the rights to them fudging with the material, I'm perfectly content. And you know what? I would say just join me in enjoying the books if you enjoy the fantasy. Don't worry about the new movies or the new shows that are coming out. Back when Rings of Power came out, I enjoyed having some time with some buddies of mine, watching it and laughing at it. But in the long scheme of things, the show didn't matter because truly, it's not canon. It doesn't matter. Don't give it power over you. It wouldn't matter to Tolkien. Why should it matter to you? Just enjoy the books.